If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, shh. Calm down. The show is about to start. Reese on the radio. Turn it up. Turn it up low. Turn it up loud.
It's like a dream come true. The audience.
Reese is all over.
Yo, let's keep it.
Due to the nature of this program, discretion does not exist. It's Reese on the radio, right now on WTIC News Talk 1080.
And a hearty and healthy welcome to the program, all you nutmeggers and scallywags across the fruited plain. It's Reese on the radio on News Talk 1080 WTIC. Always my pleasure to be here. Let your friends know, let your mama know, let your cousin them know. Reese on the radio is on the air. And let's just start saying what we should have been saying a long time ago, okay? The number one news talk station in Connecticut. Can we finally get that out of the way? Can we just say that now? We are. We are News Talk in Connecticut. Sure, there are other people, imitators, duplicators, frauds, I tell you. We are the number one news talk station. And people, there seem to be gravitating towards the program in particular and the network all around. So I appreciate that. It's my pleasure to be a part of that. And I want to thank you because it doesn't happen without you listening to the program. So I appreciate you. And I think everybody here appreciates you as well. Thank you for spending the time. Many of you spend 3 hours with us. And that you have no idea what that says to me and says to Roland and says to Steve and Janine and maybe even Joey, for that matter. Everybody cares. So we thank you for that. Now, I've been thinking about this since I saw this headline today. And it's been going on for a while. I want to give you a little bit of background on Reese on Radio. You think you've heard everything, but you haven't. There are some things that I keep to myself for a later date. I don't always try to make it about me, but sometimes I'll drag a story from my personal life in order to express where this point of view is coming from. So, for those of you who do not know, I have been very entrenched in Judaism for a lot of years in my life. 2 exes are Jewish. Their children, one of them biologically mine, Jewish. So when I talk about this subject, I don't want it to be like, oh, because I'm entrenched in the Jewish culture, this is why you shouldn't do this, that, and the third. No. I am not standing there on my high horse looking down my nose on people. I'm just telling you that what I see today with anti-Semitism doesn't concern me. It intrigues me. Because everyone else is afraid. I talked to my ex-wife a couple of weeks ago. In fact, a couple of months ago. She's very nervous, as are her children. Very nervous about the growing sentiment. They live in New York, the heart of New York City, Greenwich Village. They see those protests every day. The anti-Zionist attacking anybody who even appears Jewish. I will admit my ex-wife looks Jewish. She's a feisty old lady. I know that she would get into a little one-on-one with one of these little scrawny kids if they would ever approach her and say something disrespectful to her. I'm not concerned about that. But I understand where this is coming from. And I want to tell a little bit of some background here about why there's so much anti-Semitism in the state of Connecticut. Because you wouldn't think it. But this is the heart of racism, ladies and gentlemen. A place like Connecticut is wrought with racism. But it's not the racism you're accustomed to knowing. No, it's the racism of the 1950s and 60s. It's the Jim Crow racism. The structural racism that comes from the low expectations crowd, the soft bigotry crowd, the you can't make it because you're oppressed crowd, you're not smart enough crowd. The Lyndon B. Johnson, let's end poverty by not putting the onus on those who are poor, let us take care of them because they can't do it themselves. That's why there's so much anti-Semitism in the state of Connecticut. I got it right here. It's in my hands. It was reported right here. The ADL did an audit on anti-Semitism, and it remains high in Connecticut. Embedded in our society, it says in quotations. A new Anti-Defamation League audit of anti-Semitism incidents revealed a higher number of recorded anti-Semitic incidents in 2024 in Connecticut. There were 159 reported incidents in 2024 in the state, and 134% increase since 2023. Slightly down from the 184 reported incidents in 2023. The audit showed that 104 of the 159 incidents were harassment. 53 of them were vandalism. 2 of them were assaults. The number of incidents of harassment have increased by 89% since 2022. Let me tell you what this is about. I got to go back. I got to go back to 2020. No, sorry. I've got to go back to 2003. Something happened in the country. There were a lot of people who were concerned about what took place in 2001. An attack on our homeland from September 11th. And some 2 years after, a sentiment started to change. It became no more about American unity. It then became a conversation about why do they hate us? It became what many might describe as self-reflective. The reason why they attacked those towers, they attacked the Pentagon, the reason why they have declared war on us is because we are evil. And that was easy to sell to the left that already hated America before the events of September 11th, 2001. It's always been there, hasn't it? People keep treating like this anti-American sentiment happened after the attacks of September 11th died down. No, it's always been there. What? What are you talking about? It's always been there. That's the left. It just is. And soon, after 2003, the sentiment started to grow. What can we do to understand them? Why they hate us so much? What could we do to change? We can't have a group of people living in our country believe that they are hated. So while people were still reeling and scared, nervous and not understanding, some of them unwarranted but some of them very warranted. Some people had to be put in check. And there was an upliftment, if you will, of Islam and Muslims, a charm offensive, if you will. There are plenty of them who are our friends, plenty of them who are not our enemies, plenty of them who do not celebrate the attacks of September 11th. That was what you heard. That's what you remember. And then there became a degree of what we all know as white guilt. Sound familiar? Yeah, happened way before the whole Black Lives Matter movement. That's all it was. It was white guilt. Then nothing could be criticized. Their way of life had to be celebrated. Their way of life had to be explained, even if it were detrimental. Some people even went against the things that they believed before then. Remember when everyone was screaming and hollering about how you couldn't be opposed to gay marriage, but Muslims says, hell no, and people went, okay. Remember that? When people were standing outside of St. Patrick's Cathedral screaming at Cardinal O'Connor, you must accept gay marriage. Hey, why aren't you guys standing outside of the mosque? No, that's okay. That was happening. It went on and on and on and on. Then people became protectionists, even when the behavior was crude, even when the behavior was criminal. Everyone started to explain it away by saying, that's just their way of life. Even when so-called homegrown terrorism was happening in the country afterwards, shootings inside nightclubs, attacks in office buildings, you remember them all. The news media made sure, don't mention where they're from. Don't talk about their religious beliefs. Keep the info as far away from the attention-seeking or the information-seeking Americans. Whatever you do, tread lightly. Well, what do you think happens? What do you think happens when you have an active media and an active government doing everything to protect people while they're doing wrong? Sound familiar? Black Lives Matter movement. See, it happened way before then. Some people have forgotten about it. If you don't speak up, and again, this is not about saying to bigots or racists or criminal people. This is not in any way an endorsement of them that says, go out there, be disrespectful, be rude, or attack people who are of different religion to you. No. Don't even get that. Don't even start it. You know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there should be no more of this cover-up and nonsense about people who are doing bad things to innocent people, regardless of where they come from. If a black kid stabs a white kid in the chest just because he was asked to move, we can't say, let's find a way to bring some reason to the black kid's actions. We call a killer a killer. You see, that's the reason why college campuses have these kids running around openly, without fear, talking about attacking Jews, talking about destruction of Western civilization. Because you have a bunch of people who have been indoctrinated into believing maybe that's a good thing. You actually have them out there applauding as interlopers burn down their homes. The dumbest people in the world. And the so-called smartest people in the world are telling the rest of us who call it out that we're the bigots. And why are we bigots? Because we won't allow you to burn down our house. Because we've decided to grab the buckets and the hoses and stop the flames. And I say to all of you, the hell with that. To hell with them. I am not going to applaud the arsonists or their cheerleaders. The growing sentiment of anti-Semitism in this state and around this country cannot, should not, and will not be tolerated at all. No one is going to be blamed for a bunch of people who have decided that they wish to destroy the country that many of us put a lot of sweat equity in on a daily basis. No one is going to turn around and say, let's be more understanding of a group of people who want to cover their women up and what was the other thing that they want to do? Women are not allowed to drive. Women have to walk 3 feet, 4 feet behind their men. I'm not going to celebrate a culture that would not show my wife the respect that I do because I don't want to offend somebody and be called an Islamophobe. I refuse. I am no longer going to be angry about being an American, and I am no longer going to apologize for it. You see, in their country, they can stand proudly and believe whatever they want, and they can be as nationalist as they want to. But here in the United States, for some odd reason that's frowned upon, I recognize that as hypocrisy, and I say, ugh, eat a bag of donuts. The news media, print and otherwise, let those people feel guilty about their whiteness or their Americanness. Let them do that. But don't let them influence you. Call it out when you see it, because it's wrong. These people are taking advantage because people are allowing them to. People are giving them an excuse. People are making excuses for them, no matter what stripe they are. I can get called bigot all day. I could be called a traitor to my race. I could be called a nationalist. I could be called everything. You want to know the difference between me and them? I don't give a damn. Never have, never will. I am not looking for their acceptance. I don't want their acceptance. I don't want to be a part of their club. I don't want to go to their parties. I don't want to be one of those elites. I don't want to be one of those snobs. I'd rather stand alone. I'd rather be by myself and never have anybody ever be my friend, pick up the phone, or ever call me or send me a birthday card. Huh. Nobody wants to be a part of that. But if you do, if you're concerned about being patted on your back by a bunch of people who would sooner allow you to have your life and your way of life destroyed, if you'd rather cozy up to those bozos, have at it. I'd prefer you just end it. I'd prefer you just do that. Because what you're doing is a slow death anyway. But I'm sick and tired of being told how I'm supposed to behave or what I'm supposed to appreciate or like. I have my values. If they don't coincide with yours, okay. I had this bozo call in yesterday talking about, I feel like people who agree with Donald Trump are this, that. The difference between he and I is that I don't care. What's his name, Dave? I don't care what Dave thinks. Dave is under the impression that I do or I should. How arrogant. I don't even want you to care what I think. I just want you to think. So when I hear these stories, I get quite amused. Quite amused that a blue state, an overwhelmingly blue state that we talk about day in and day out on this program, has an anti-Semitism problem? How's that possible? It's supposed to be the extreme right-wing, racist, swastika-loving bigots who are supposed to be anti-Semites. You want to laugh? Let me give you this before we go to break. This is my favorite part. Of the 159 anti-Semitic incidents recorded in Connecticut, 21 of them had an extremist nexus, with the majority of incidents involving the distribution of white supremacist propaganda. Now, why did they write it that way? I'll tell you. It's to confuse the reader. Remember, there are 159 anti-Semitic incidents in the state. 21% of them, or 21 of them, I should say, had an extremist nexus, with the majority of incidents, majority of the 21, having a white supremacist bent. A majority of the 21, not 159. They wrote it that way to give the impression that a majority of them were No, they weren't. The majority of 21 of the 159 were anti-Semitic. That means it was minute. But it was entered in here because what they could not tell you was that this anti-Semitic bent was coming from leftists, Democrats, blue folks. They've always been the racists, always, since Andrew Jackson. Nothing changed. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More news, more views when we return. It's Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Reese on the radio, making sense of the news. Yeah, even when it makes no sense at all. Now on WTIC, News Talk 1080.
I was completely flummoxed by this article, especially just finding out that, it's always very interesting to me when I hear these stories about systemic racism or anti-Semitism. And then you look at the places where it's happening and you go, wait a minute. No one ever bothers to mention it. Oh, let me give you an example. So I have this one conversation probably 2 to 3 times a week. A listener calls me. I don't want to out him unless he tells me it's okay to say something. But he always sends me a message, a private message on Facebook, and we go back and forth at it, texting each other for about an hour or so. And the conversation's always about racism. He is a person who believes it's everywhere. You know my stance on this. And I remember having this dialogue with someone not too long ago. And it's a statistic that many people ignore. Why? I don't know. But for me, statistics mean everything. They have to. They have to mean everything. So in this conversation, someone says, well, come on, Reese. How are you going to tell me that the country isn't systemically racist? And my response to that is, okay, is it systemically racist in Detroit? And they go, absolutely. Look at the conditions for African Americans in Detroit versus white people. And I go, okay, how about Chicago? Is it systemically racist in Chicago? Absolutely, without a doubt. Look at the same deal, the conditions. I go, okay, all right. How about Indianapolis? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. New York? Yeah. And so I said, okay, fine. These places that I mentioned, there's usually a large concentration of African Americans in those areas, with the exception of Mississippi. Those cities that I just mentioned have a large concentration of African Americans, in the millions, correct? Absolutely. Okay. All right. Would you like to tell me the political structure of those cities that they live in? What are they? So immediately they start to get this backlash. What's that got to do with it? Everything. Everything. Because I'll put it to you this way. If I'm living in a town that is structurally, systematically racist, I have to know who are the people, who are the players in that racism, who's responsible. Are black people being treated racially by police? Okay, who's the police chief? Oh, is that a black woman? That doesn't seem to comport with my point of view. It can't be a black woman who's a chief of police and the place still be systemically racist towards black. No, that doesn't make sense. But what about the mayor? The mayor. Oh, yeah. That's right, the mayor's black. In fact, he won overwhelmingly the black vote. What about the political structure, like the House of Representatives, like the legislature? It's like, oh, really? 85% Democrat? Wow, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah, it blows the whole thing up, doesn't it? No, it does not blow the whole thing up. It qualifies your statement. And I know the person that I have those commentaries with online, or those texts back and forth, I know he's listening. So I'll say to you, pay very close attention to where you live. See, it ain't the big bad Republicans, and it damn sure ain't Whitey. And if it is, it's Whitey of your party. The ones who say that they're there working for you, the ones who tell you that there's systematic racism everywhere while they're in charge and doing nothing to quell it, to end it, that's why. Jews live in Connecticut, the beautiful place to live. You love the politics. You voted for Ned Lamont. You probably voted for Blumenthal. He's Blumenthal. You voted for Chris Murphy. Huh? You voted for all of this. And then you wonder why they're extremely silent as kids go through the neighborhood attacking Jews. And you can't blame us Republicans. You damn sure can't blame MAGA. When MAGA's nowhere to be found, who can you blame? Well, you just create a guy out of nowhere. So that's why I don't listen to any of this nonsense. I pay attention to the facts, and sometimes they lay them right out. I want to go back to this point. And this, again, the writer knew what they were doing. Of 159 anti-Semitic incidents recorded in Connecticut, 21 had an extremist nexus, with the majority of incidents involving the distribution of white supremacist propaganda, the audit states. But that is meaningless, because a majority of 21 incidents could be 12. Or it could be 7. They don't break down what those 21 extremist nexuses were. They don't. They say a majority of them. They keep that hidden. But they put it in the language to make you think that it's a majority of 159, even though they put the number 21 there. It's not even relevant to the story. The reason why they put white supremacist views in there in plain sight and didn't put in the amount of anti-Semitism that comes from the black community or the college community is because they're keeping that hidden on purpose. And folks, I'll be the first one to tell you. And please, black folks, you gonna call me a liar? Get on that phone right now and tell me I'm lying. Get on the phone right now and call me out and tell me how much I'm lying. The African-American community has got a long-standing beef with Jews. Long-standing. And it's about something as simple as what I'm about to say to you. It's real simple. Come on. I know, black listeners, I know that you're sitting there and you're going, yeah, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? I'll say it. They got some nerve calling themselves the chosen ones. That's the beef. That's the beef. The beef is because Judea says that they are God's chosen people. There are people in the African-American community who are mad about that. Think they're God's chosen people. And you want to know why? It's just as simple. Come on. It's the story as old as Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying that to be sacrilegious. You know my meaning, right? What was that little tiff between Judea and Jesus Christ? How dare he say he's the chosen one, right? Right? Yeah, that's the same thing. African-American community looks at the Jews the same way. How dare they call themselves the chosen one? It's like when the black kid looks at the new guy who gets a good job and starts dressing nice and gets a new car. Ooh, look at him. You think you brand new? It's a jealousy play. You'd be surprised, folks. I know that a lot of you don't get into those spaces, but I do. You'd be surprised at the things that the African-American community say about the Jewish community. You'd be stunned. You sit up and go, wow, what? I thought these people were against that kind of racism. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you, I know a lot of people that you don't want anybody to repeat that. I don't care. I got no allegiance to you. Not trying to. I'm just telling the truth. And instead, look, and this is the thing about the article. Instead of footing around with this nonsense, with this gibberish, like wanting to tell the story without telling the story, right? Trying to give the facts without giving them all. We all know this to be true. These statistics that I'm citing, this isn't blather. I didn't pull this out of thin air. It's a fact. You'll never see news reports on the Jewish conflict with African Americans. You know what you'll hear? You'll hear things like this from Bernie Sanders. Jews and blacks have long had a standing in the civil rights movement. That means nothing in the African American community. Nothing. I'll even give you a little bit of homework. If you got a really, really good African American friend, black friend, whatever, ask him. Say, hey, man, I was listening to Reese on radio, black guy over there in WTIC. Yeah, he was talking about, like, African American community and their relationship with Jews. Like, what's all that about? They might say to you, well, what did he say? Don't give him any. Just tell him, it's like, seriously, is there a rift there? He'll spill. He'll tell you exactly what I just told you. It's always been the case. And it's about as something as silly as being the chosen people. How dare they? I know. But see, that's not in this article. And you know it is there. They know it is. The person who wrote this article knows damn well that that's what's going on. Young people, African Americans, leftists, trying to throw in that little white supremacy trope. Here's the crazy part. In the anti-Semitism Olympics, the white supremacists don't even get a bronze. Damn. They are coming in like 9th place. Out of 10. That's how bad it is. We'll take your phone call. Stick around. I know you guys are on hold. I'll get to you in a second. It's Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
It's Reese on the radio.
Ask your doctor if common sense is right for you.
On NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Let's get right to the phones. 860-522-WTIC. I'm going to see if we can do a little speed round here real quick. Adam's in East Hartford. How are you, sir?
Hey, good afternoon, Reese. And I like how you're down to earth and, you're conservative and, you don't take the liberal side like when it's law and order. But the one thing, here's an area where you and I might disagree with, though. You know the subway, the drug addict on the subway in New York City and the former Marine had to put him in the hold?
No, I'm not familiar with that story. But what?
Remember the chokehold? The chokehold in New York City and the subway guy passed out. He was a black guy that was like on drugs that threatened passengers and had a history of mental illness.
Oh, and you're talking about when he was put in a chokehold by Daniel Penny. You talking about that guy?
Right.
Okay.
The only thing I'm thinking, it was good that he put the move on and saved the adults, but I'm just wondering if he shouldn't have kept the hold on too long. You know what I mean?
You know what? I've played this video on my podcast, and I think I have played it here as well. This young man, Neely, that was killed at the hands of Daniel Penny. He how do I put this? That day was coming for him, and it wasn't necessarily going to be Daniel Penny. Let me tell you why. There's a video that I have. There's a video that I have of him. A guy walking down the street just sees Neely performing his Michael Jackson act in Times Square on 9th Avenue and 42nd Street. In fact, I know the area well because I spent a lot of time there with the kids. But anyway, he's there dancing, and a guy's there filming him, dancing. And Neely turns around and starts mocking the man about the shirt that he's wearing and calling him homosexual slurs. He does.
Yeah, that's not good.
And when he ignores him and decides to leave, Neely then follows him and physically attacks him after the fact. He never once swung on Neely while Neely is on camera hitting him so hard he's knocking the phone practically out of his hand while cursing at him saying, yeah, call the cops, call the cops. Very similar to the incident that led to his death. Now, I have that video. I played it on these airwaves. I've even played it on my podcast. Everybody knows about it, but everyone is pretending like this guy was just a hungry Michael Jackson impersonator and had no run-ins with the law. They're always wrong. Always wrong.
No, you're right. Before I run, I want to say there are some criminals that look for attention. Like, I knew this guy that went to the Christian Singles event, and he exposed himself to teenage
Goodness
kids.
gracious.
But then he went to the Christian Singles Christmas dinner. Instead of, hiding and being a little ashamed, he puts on this crazy hat, and he starts putting on a dance, in the middle of the floor, showing his moves. And I'm thinking, shouldn't this guy be, humbled and kind of hiding? And he's, bragging.
Listen,
so
this kid, and I think his name is Jordan Neely, the one who passed away at the hands of Daniel Penny. Jordan Neely was a guy who was desperate and violent, and he scared people. And I don't think it was a question of whether or not his moves or that particular chokehold was going to be the end of it. Something would have happened. And not only that, I didn't even mention Jordan Neely. I don't know if you remember this. Jordan Neely had a rap sheet that was long that included kidnapping of a 7-year-old. Did you know that?
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Okay.
He had it coming in.
All right. In the Bronx, he grabbed a 7-year-old girl and was charged with kidnapping and still didn't serve a day of jail. So Jordan Neely had quite a rap sheet. This guy, like I said, and imagine the father of that 7-year-old had been there when he tried to kidnap that girl. Do you think he would have survived? Yeah, not if it was your daughter. Yeah. Exactly, not if it was your daughter. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Yeah, like I said, this was just one of those situations that Jordan Neely was a perfect storm. He was a perfect storm who his fate was what it was on that train that day. That's what it was. It was always his fate. When you looked at his rap sheet, the stuff that he got away with, under normal circumstances, had it been you or me, kidnapped your 7-year-old girl in broad daylight, do you think he would have survived for the cops to come? Come on, let's be honest here. Let's take a break. Let's get our first check of the weather and traffic with Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center. Hey, bud.
President of the Chris Murphy Fan Club, Reese on the radio on News Talk 1080 WTIC.
Let's get to the phones because I got plenty of stuff that I got to get into today. I've got the financial calamity that will be mass deportation in Connecticut. I got that article coming up as well that I need to talk about, as well as, I hear that Yale has got a new course that's coming. When you hear that ought to make you crazy. And, of course, in the next couple of minutes, we got the stupidest thing I read today. I can't believe this. Apparently, an overpaid McDonald's employee is trying to make a return. We'll talk about that as well in the stupidest thing today. Let's get to the phones. Polly is calling all the way from Niagara Falls. Did you enjoy the show this morning?
Oh, my, I did. I caught you. I was like, yay. You give our WBN a little bit of spice there. Yeah.
How you doing, Polly? I saw you in the chat room. You were all over this story about the anti-Semitism in Connecticut. What was your take on that?
See, I'm not sure I'm quite following you, but I would say, first off, this racism, it's this weaponized term, technocracy, trying to form our culture, no such thing as white racism, and
right.
And it's just, it's trying to shape our thinking, but I would say we're on a dangerous road right now.
Yeah.
Because this administration, they were ready to deport an American the other day who had broken English from New Mexico. He grew up in Mexico. He was an American citizen, and they were ready to take him to El Salvador.
But did he have any gang affiliation at all? Or were they just going to put him?
No.
All right.
Broken English. But the point is also at the Border Patrol. He was vacationing. He's from New Mexico, was in Arizona, got lost walking. Border Patrol picked him up, and they said, he said he was an illegal. And the family had to find him and bring his birth certificate and social, and then get him released. But they were getting ready. Okay, what I'm thinking and seeing is it looks like, because I heard even Trump say that even American citizens who are really, really bad, really dangerous, we might be ready to deport them.
I heard him say that too, Polly. Let me stop you before you go a little into that. You don't, because I got to ask you the question. You don't think any of him saying that was really just to kind of elbow little razzing of the political, not political, I apologize, the news media, knowing damn well that even saying it was going to be the narrative the next day? You don't think that was a little bit of goosing them?
Not when due process is being ignored. There was a town hall with Senator Grassley.
I saw that.
The people were, yeah.
But Polly, wait, hold on. Now, and I know you're not some radical leftist or anything like that. But
right.
I know exactly where you stand. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're making this point about due process, and I got to ask you this. Due process would suggest that, and in the context of Abrego Garcia, I know you're talking about due process for anyone for that matter who's being sent out. But here's my question to you: there's a level of hubris in a lot of this talk about due process and using Abrego Garcia in that conversation. He has been adjudicated some 5-6 times throughout the court system. There has been a court system that he has been a part of as far as the due process has been concerned. In fact, there's been so much due process with Abrego Garcia, he was just allowed to stay, and in some cases was just let go on 2 cases where he had abused his wife, which is an infraction that gets you deported, by the way. This guy was not only given due process, but they ignored that at writ large. Like, she had video, according to her own testimony, of him beating her and attacking her, and even that wasn't enough to remove him. They allowed him to stay. So at some point, I'm saying, weren't we really giving Abrego Garcia a lot of passes until this administration came out and said, no means no, and there are no free passes? Because he had been getting one for 11 years.
No. I hear that fully. But what I'm saying is, especially for American citizens, but even the ones who aren't, I do believe in the even though it seems like, okay, it's going to cost us more money. We've already had them in the country. Okay, you're going to take up maybe an 11-year-old? Who knows?
First of all, I'll put it to you like this, and I know where the heartstrings get into this. If I've got to deport children, people are going to see that the optics are going to look bad, and they're going to say, why aren't we allowing them to stay? They're just children. They came here through no fault of their own. I got to tell you, this is, again, more people are concerned about optics instead of facts, and this is the reason why we are where we are. We have let too many people allow us to take our eye off the ball for the sake of looking prudent or fair or kind. We are costing people their lives because we don't want to appear a certain way, while other countries treat their people who break into their country far worse. If you were to look at the immigration policies of Mexico, the immigration policies of Mexico make ours look, I mean, well, comparative, I think ours to any country, we're the most giving. But in Mexico, the opposite way. Go from Guatemala if you're not coming in through a coyote. Try to go through Mexico by yourself and see how the federales will treat you. You know, if they don't kill you, they assault you. And if you're a woman, it's far worse. You'd wish you were dead. So I look at this and I go, yeah, America, we're better than that. Yeah, you know what? We are better than that, but we need to be better than that to our citizens first. And then everybody else who wants to come in and be one, allow them to go through the proper way. And if they're an 11-year-old, if there's an 11-year-old in the country illegally, how about we do this? Fast track an 11-year-old to get into the country as long as he's going to be with a real sponsor and a real family and not a sex trafficker or a labor trafficker.
Yes.
So,
but here's one other point that's kind of sticky. It's a double-edged sword here.
Yeah.
We got Palantir, J.D. Vance, Palantir, Peter Thiel. That's it. Minority credit score. We got that stuff coming down the pike to be sort of like, oh, we just found an American that maybe should go to El Salvador. See, I'm not saying they're going to do that, but it looks like it might be in the wings. And I'm just saying, okay, I'm not going out on a limb either.
Okay.
I'm saying we better be real careful with our First Amendment, due process, freedom of speech, and this anti-Semitism.
I'll push back on this. I'll push back in this regard because I just got Bob just made this comment in the chat room. He says you will make any excuse for any asinine Trump statement. So let me push back on what you're asking and what Bob just said in the chat room, just so we hear each other out and everybody understands this. Donald Trump just had the Supreme Court put a halt on removing Venezuelan gang members out of the country. Okay? So we know that there are checks and balances. We know that there are judicial courts, there are district courts who have done everything to put a kibosh on everything the administration is doing. So for someone to believe that Donald Trump is going to behave like a king and no one's going to be able to stop him, should he actually decide out of nowhere, yeah, let's just take an actual Maryland man who's a part of the Bloods and Crips and take him down to El Salvador and no one's going to do anything? Or as Simone Sanders said on her MSNBC show over the weekend, be careful, people of color, because you're next. In essence, saying that Donald Trump's going to start removing black folks. At some point, when people say that Donald Trump makes asinine comments and ignore Simone over at BET, when she says something ridiculous like that, nobody even bothers to say, hey, come on, Simone, maybe that was a dumb statement. But Donald Trump's comments, which we know are untrue, are considered real. I can't do it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, I got to say to Bob though, we already have had 300. Now I'm not okay. Most conservatives and patriots would say anything the left universities and the students are protesting. We're 180 to it because they got to be wrong.
Right.
Okay, when they fight against the Gaza war and they talk about the genocide and they're called anti-Semite. And then they get deported like 300. That's a little, I'm sure some of them, maybe, I don't know.
But Polly, I can't, listen, if you're here under a student visa, as UConn just did recently, they got rid of some people. One guy who wouldn't give his name, but he actually told his story. He got into a physical altercation with a young lady and then therefore gave him police interaction, and they revoked his visa for it. And look, the same case with Abrego Garcia. It's a deportable offense to beat your wife. He did it twice and he was allowed to stay.
Right.
So at what point? Right? At what point are we going to...
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying we are in a danger zone.
Right, exactly.
I'm seeing it.
Exactly.
That we're in a danger zone, and we better be real careful. If we want to uphold the Constitution, it needs to be whether it's pretty or ugly.
Yeah.
We better uphold it. And it's looking to me like we might be going south on
I don't think we're there yet, but I hear you, Polly. Thank you, my dear.
All right. Love you, though.
I love you, too. So Bob says Simone is not the president. Yeah, but we're talking about the free speech rights of both. and whether or not Simone Sanders is telling. See, again, Simone Sanders, in your view, Bob, clearly has more credibility than Donald Trump. And because she isn't the president of the United States, while she's telling her black audience that they should be fearful of being deported, who do you think is being more reckless? We know that the president of the United States can say anything under the sun. We know that. You know that. Everybody knows that. Now, you're trying to put a 10 on the 2, giving me this nonsense about Donald Trump said something. You're kidding. Did you feel this way when Joe Biden said, this has nothing to do with your freedom? Or we're growing tired or impatient about your failure to comply? Did you seem to care when the Biden administration was telling people to censor you and your conversation? Or when they went so far, the president and former president of the United States went so far to investigate whether or not cell phone companies could monitor your private text messages should you be talking about COVID or COVID vaccines. Spare me. You said nothing. You didn't say a word. You were quiet as a church mouse. But now Big Bad Orange Man is in office, and every word that comes out of his mouth is a constitutional crisis. No one believes you, man. No one believes you. Okay? You have no credibility. Your credibility is shot. And the people that you believe and the mantra that you repeat over and over again, like a parakeet, is not to be believed, and it won't. You've been wrong. You're always wrong. You're never right. No one can believe you because your credibility is zilch. So I don't care whether or not he's a president, he's not. No one cares. Stop whining. Get over yourself. You can't say one thing on one breath and then turn around and contradict yourself on the other. Your points are useless. Useless. Save it for people who are dumb automatons who fall for that nonsense over and over again. Write the editor of your newspaper. He already believes that. Get in your own little circle jam and play with each other. Nobody with reason or accountability listens to this nonsense anymore. Everything ain't racist. Donald Trump is not Hitler. Sorry. You've been telling us that for 10 years. And the world keeps getting better under him. And when we go with your guys and we follow your lead, guess what? It always goes straight to hell. Always. Your credibility is meaningless. And I don't care how hard you type on your computer. It's never going to change what the facts are. Your team sucks. And it won't be enough to change quarterbacks. You got to get rid of the entire team. Everybody. You got to get rid of everybody. Even the equipment manager. Even the janitors. You got to clean the whole thing up. Your points are bubkiss. No one's believing them. We'll take a break. Let's get some more news, more views. In a minute, now it's time for the weather and traffic with Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center.
Stay locked in. Reese on the radio is
On WTIC, News Talk 1080.
Yes, you do. Stupid as can be. This could very well be the stupidest person on the face of the earth.
What is the stupidest thing that I've read today? Folks, it's been 10 years. Has it really been that long? I can't believe it's been 10 years. But according to this story, it has been. I think the last time this overpaid McDonald's employee, the last time he bothered to suit up, is that right? Yeah, almost 10 years, was back in the 2016 season. That's right. Colin Kaepernick is back in the news. And can you believe it? The last time he suited up was when his team went 2-14 in the 2016 season when he was with the San Francisco 49ers. After taking that team to prominence, what was it, second year as the quarterback, went to the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. You remember that? Well, they went to the NFC Championship game. But nonetheless, you remember it. I remember it. Well, it turns out that Colin Kaepernick, 10 years later, well, almost 10 years later, is still trying to get into the NFL. Yeah. He refuses to give it up. He's still training to be a man. Not in the XFL, not in the CFL, not even some D League. No, he is still trying to get into the NFL. I don't know why, but for a guy who had a Netflix special that called the NFL the slave trade, is still trying to get on the plantation. And again, this is embarrassing. The reason why I called him, why I always called him the overpaid McDonald's employee. And here's what it is. And I tried to make this analogy to a lot of people. I hate having to relitigate this, but you never heard my take on this. Colin Kaepernick is like you hiring a McDonald's employee who's a vegetarian, and they work at the counter. And every person who comes up to buy a hamburger, Colin has to tell you about the climate change that you are affecting by eating beef. And he does it to every customer that comes up. And after a while, you have to fire him. And then he starts protesting outside of your McDonald's, and the crowd starts applauding him because he, who chose to work at a place that sells hamburgers, will not hire a guy who's against hamburgers to work inside their establishment. And people said, why are you calling him a McDonald's employee? He's a football player. He's an employee of a franchise. He gets paid far more in the NFL than he would at McDonald's, which would give him some perspective. But as far as I'm concerned, you're not going to come into my league and criticize what we do and who we are and expect me to pay you a paycheck. Bounce, homie. That's all I'm saying. Let's get another check of the weather and traffic with Mark Christopher and Jason Catarinas. Can you believe that guy's still trying to get into the NFL, Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah, I think you've been out for this long. You're not going to be able to make it back.
No, I mean, the XFL is there. He would bring so much attention to that league right now. The XFL, not that they're struggling. I'm sure they're working pretty hard on it. And the NFL's involved. Just play in that league. You want to bring some star power to it. I'm sure he's got some appeal to, whatever his followers are. Just
the average life in the NFL is not very long.
3 years.
Yeah, that's right. 3 years. So he's been out for, it seems like a decade now, doesn't it?
2016 was his last game.
All right, so 9 years.
Yeah. Like, why? Why are we still trying to get a place that you're maligning? That's like, you know what? It's like Mark Christopher doing traffic and he hates cars.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was could be one of these real green people that don't like any cars.
The self-proclaimed love child of Rush Limbaugh.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Coming up, we're going to talk about this story by Molly Ingram. Mass deportations will hurt Connecticut financially. Study finds. I'll read you some of the outrageousness in this. Let's get to the phones. Mike is in Plainville. How are we doing, sir?
It is my belief that when you're conceived as a child, your physical traits and qualities are going to be determined by the parents. Now, in your opinion, do you think genetics plays a role in racism? In other words, are you inheriting all the bad stuff, the bad feelings about certain groups of people from your great-great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father, your mother?
Absolutely not.
That comes out later in life?
Absolutely not. And it's funny that you say that. I just made, I told that story yesterday. It was fictional. I think the person I was telling it to believed it to be true, about Thomas Sowell and Al Sharpton. This idea, it would be like saying that your father's actions you would be held liable for because you are his son. Right? So, like, if your father had, robbed a bank and no one had ever discovered, who he was or the money that he took, and then finally through some weird DNA evidence, they found out that he took it, but the money's never been found, and then the police coming to you saying, well, your daddy's dead, you've got to go to prison for him. People would be appalled at that. And we're talking, again, we're not talking about hundreds of years. We're talking about a generation. Your father to you. It would be unheard of for you to have to pay the price for your father's crimes. And everybody would know that.
So what you're saying is the people I hang out with, my group of friends and peers in high school and college and the work I did, that's the reason why I'm not a racist. I don't like the word minority. And pretty much I grew up in Northwest Connecticut, mostly white part of the country. I grew up colorblind.
Well, most people,
college. I didn't have one racial problem in college.
One person would say because now, and that's another thing, is that because you weren't around people of color, that would be of some detriment to you. Like, in order for you to have a fulfilled life, you had to have had people of color into it, which I say bogus, because no one ever says that about people of color. They don't tell people of color in the inner city, you need more white people in your life. No one would ever dream of saying that.
I was trying to explain why somebody that grew up in the same town as I did would be like extreme racist, and I like basically colorblind.
Yeah.
And it to this day, I mean, I think that it's just a negative effect by the media, and I think that your peer group, parents, outside influences. So you're going with that is the reason why people are racist.
But look, okay, can I go one step further? Can I take a political bent on this? So I grew up in a house in Queens where my mother, my grandmother, probably not so much my grandfather, but definitely my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, and my uncles were all Democrats. By the age of 10, I watched Ronald Reagan on television. Now, again, I'm raised in a house full of Democrats. I see one speech by Ronald Reagan, and I'm intrigued by him. And by the time I get promoted from the 3rd to the 4th grade, I'm a Republican. Like, I'm identifying as a Reagan Republican from then on, no matter what my upbringing. And everybody, and we're talking, my mom to this day, always been Democrat. My sisters, my brother, always voted Democrat. I was the only one that was a Republican in my family. So it's like, was I born like outside in a shed? No, I was born in the house with these folks. So it's never about your upbringing, about that. It is about, well, when I say upbringing, meaning it's not genetic. It's about how you carry yourself throughout life. Now, if they teach you you're supposed to hate somebody or you're not supposed to communicate or be around them, that's another thing. But most kids are inquisitive. I believe that it's just my view that they are inquisitive. Mama, why can't we talk to that guy?
Even now, like you see interracial marriages or relationships, and people get upset over it. I'm like, what? I see it.
You know what?
Every year.
Forget about that. Culturally, we see that changing.
It's changing. It should, leave people alone. Let them go out with whoever they want. It's just so
it is a power. Listen, it's a power move by leftists, and it always works because they know that it's worked in the past. That's why I say this isn't a newfound thing. This is just old. This is an old maneuver coming back in vogue. That's all it is. Let me move on, buddy. Thank you, man. Let's go to Fulton, who's in Waterbury. Hey, Fulton.
Hey, what's going on? I had a question about the call before about the guy that was roaming around the border, almost got sent to El Salvador.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of missing facts there, right? Like, he didn't have an ID. He was just roaming around the border.
Exactly.
And people are worried that we're stopping people like that. I don't think they almost had him a plane. Like, who stopped it? Like the lady said.
But here's the thing. He was almost sent to El Salvador, but never made it there. But remember what the most important part.
The dad came in with the birth certificate the last second. He was on the plane. They're like, get him off. So we were good.
But the last thing about that, Fulton, is, and that's the most important part, right? The fact that he almost went is the most egregious.
So
right?
Almost. That was like a Trump thing. He's a racist. What he's saying, we don't know, but he's a racist. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly the case. It's
the other thing I was going to say is with the El Salvador guy, he has a standing deportation order. So
Indeed.
If they bring him back, they can deport him somewhere else.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the other part. Here's the part that I find insane, right? It was like, but they couldn't deport him because in El Salvador, he was in fear of a rival gang. Yes, he was in MS-13. No, he wasn't. Wait, hold on. he was.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, it's in a court document that he can't go back to his country because a rival gang's going to kill him. He's in a gang.
Exactly.
But
So
he's
fearful of a rival gang, but he's not in one.
Right. That's what I mean. You want to use facts, but then you don't want to use the facts. So I don't know. I think people just need to be more transparent with everything.
Yeah, I agree, buddy. I agree. I 100% agree.
That's all I had to say.
You got it, Bob.
I don't know about that first story. That's all.
I hear you. Bob says, Reagan loved black people. Not. Bob, sadly. And I only do this because I'm a Reagan historian. Okay? So I'm only saying this because what you just said was blasphemy and an outright lie. You know nothing, and I mean nothing, about Ronald Reagan. Nothing. Have you ever read the diaries of Ronald Reagan? I have. I've read Ronald Reagan's diaries. You can pick them up. I would suggest you did. It's called Diaries and Letters. Pick them up. You'll find out exactly what Ronald Reagan thought of African Americans. You'll find out a lot about things that you know nothing about with Ronald Reagan. So with all due respect, slow your roll. You don't know what you're talking about. That is a talking point that a lot of people in the black community have been rolling for a lot of years. And again, they don't know what they're talking about. So please stop, get your info, and then start spouting off. And another thing, if I may say so, this obsession with needing white people to like you. I don't know what that's about, but I would say see a therapist. White people don't have to like you in order for you to be loved. They are not your mommy and your daddy. You are not a redheaded stepchild begging for them to acknowledge you. If you're still worried about whether or not white people like you, that seems like a personal problem. You know, white people don't like us. So what? So what? I don't spend my entire day worrying about who likes me and who doesn't. I'm not trying to build a fan club. Do you have people who love you? Do you have people who care about you? Do you have people who take care of you when you're sick or when you're in need? Good. But if you're running around all day worrying about whether or not white people care about you, you got bigger problems. With all due respect, and I'll speak for the white man if I can, he don't care about you. He cares about his wife and his child and his needs and his job and his bills. Ain't nobody got to sit around worrying about, well, you think let's see if we can like some black people today. Hey, Bob, did you like any blacks today? Well, I was thinking about it, but I've got golf on Saturday. Get mad. I want you to. I don't care if you get mad. But that's how silly it sounds. I sit here and I hear these people talking about how worried they are about what group of people like them. Come on, man. Come on. My grandfather grew up with people hating him. Hating him. Why? Because he wanted to run a business in North Carolina, in a predominantly white town. He knew there was a target on his back every day, but he was still successful until he had to close down because of the big box stores. But he didn't gripe. He didn't whine. He didn't come home saying to my grandmother, why don't the white people like me? He got up every day and he did it again. What happened to us? Please. It's embarrassing to watch. Just embarrassing. People say that I'm cruel and I'm mean-spirited. This is embarrassing. Can't in one breath say that we're the strongest and most civilized and the smartest and the bravest, and then whine about whether or not the white folks love us. Can't be both. Love yourself. Work there. I said this old story a long time ago. Reese, why don't you care about the N-word? Well, because if I did, it would reveal two things. One, I am one, and two, they're on to me. I never care about what other people think of me. And I don't care what you think either. Don't care about what black folks think of me and what white folks think about me. I just live. Can you imagine living a life that obsessed? Any one of you. Can you imagine a life that obsessed where your every waking moment was worried about somebody looking at you a certain way, thinking about you a certain way? The paranoia of living through life wondering if a group of people sees you as less than, and you running around with a chip on your shoulder thinking that every person who was white who walked by you was thinking the worst things about you. Can you imagine a life like that? Do you think that would be your fault or the person who has to live their life every day doing that? I put the onus on the person who irrationally lives in that kind of fear. Get help. You need it. That's the point. Laura says, what an ego that you think everyone is looking at you. Yeah, it's a degree of narcissism unparalleled. It's insane. I love it every bit. It's fun to watch, but I know it's sad. It's so sad. That's the type of shame that people should recognize daily. So how shameful that is. You live a life where you can't accomplish anything because you're always worried about what somebody's going to think. I can't do it. I can't. I'd be scared to death every day. Should I make that move? What will they say? I don't know. Anyway. All right, when we come back, what else am I going to talk? Oh, I got to talk about this mass deportation, how it will affect Connecticut financially. The study finds. When you read this, or when I read it to you, I should say. When I read it to you, they don't hide anything in this story. They don't hide anything, but they do lie. Try this on for size. And now ask yourself this question when we go to a break. Just ask yourself this question. Do you believe that 150,000 undocumented migrants in the state of Connecticut pay more than $400 million in taxes? I say again, do you believe that 150,000 undocumented immigrants, according to the story, are paying more than $400 million in taxes? Do you believe that? Give us a call, 860-522-WTIC. Let's get another check of the weather and traffic with Jason Catarina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center. Hey, man.
The hour that packs a punch. It's Reese on the radio on WTIC News Talk 1080.
All right, be ready. When we come back in a little bit, we're going to talk about this article by Molly Ingram from, I guess this is down in, well, she's writing from the state capitol. Anyway. About the mass deportation of undocumented immigrants, as she writes, says it will hurt Connecticut citizens. She says regardless of their legal status, according to a new study. And they don't make a strong argument. So I asked the question before the break. I said, according to this report and these statistics, from 150,000 illegals in the state, they contribute over $400 million in taxes. And some people immediately, the math slews went nuts inside the chat room to figure it out. So for those of you who have been doing it or trying to figure it out while you're driving, don't worry. They did it for you, so I'm going to tell you. But wait until you hear what I'm about to respond to this number to. So the sleuths, the scallywags, they got inside their computers and they started looking it up and they said, how much is that per person? How much is that per person? Okay, 150,000 people contributing $400 million is a breakdown of $2,666.66. Again, 150,000 illegals paying $400 million in taxes amounts to $2,666.66. When we come back, I'm going to tell you the average American citizen and what they contribute in taxes. You do not want to miss this number. Don't go looking it up, let me tell you. Don't go looking it up. We'll read the article. We'll have that number when we return. Let's see, in fact, before we do, let's see if we can get Mark Christopher and Jason Catarinas to see if they can get a guess, and then we'll tell everybody what it is. Mark Christopher is in the BPS Traffic Center with Jason Catarina. Mark.
Yes.
The illegal in the country puts in about average 150,000. Each one of them contributes $2,666, right? $66,000 into taxes. What do you think? Give me a round number of what every average American contributes in taxes. How much do you think it is?
Federal taxes?
Yeah, just taxes.
I'm gonna guess. I'll guess. No, you're talking every American.
Every American. Versus the illegals are counted in Connecticut as contributing $26.66. What do you think the average American contributes in taxes?
I'll say $8,000 a year.
Okay. Hold on to that number. We will tabulate it. We'll get Mark in for 8.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. No problem.
Right.
I just want to make sure we get that number in.
Reese on the radio is getting ready to drop some knowledge.
On WTIC, News Talk 1080.
Drop it.
We're back, Reese on the radio. We'll get to your phone calls in a second, so please be patient. Mass deportation would hurt Connecticut financially, study finds. This is written by WSHU and by Molly Ingram, who appears to be quite sympathetic to the plights of illegals in the state. Here's what she writes. The mass deportation of undocumented immigrants would hurt Connecticut citizens regardless of their legal status, according to a new study. The research is from the Connecticut Voices for Children and the Immigration Research Initiative. They found that there are about 150,000 undocumented immigrants in the state. In 2022, they paid more than $400 million in taxes. Emily Byrne, who leads the Connecticut Voices for Children, said deporting 10% of them would result in the loss of $41 million in tax revenue. While we realize that no community should be reduced to economics, it happens to be the thing that most Americans are paying attention to. And so our hope is that by highlighting these very quantifiable economic and fiscal risks, such as tax revenue, labor shortages, and increased customer costs, will help more people understand the consequences of punitive immigration policies. The study also found that Connecticut would lose manual laborers, of course. Nationally, 13% of construction workers are undocumented or illegal. I put that in there. More than 30,000 of Connecticut's construction workers, 25% of the state's sector, are immigrants. They don't say illegals, they just say immigrants. In Connecticut, 11,000 janitors and cleaners, 7,000 landscape workers, 1,000 nail technicians, 11,000 maids and housekeepers are immigrants, with and without legal status. Additionally, 35% of the cooks in the state are immigrants. Losing workers from the farming, restaurant, and construction would drive up prices for consumers, according to the study. Deportation or immigrants losing jobs actually has a negative impact on citizens who are working and on their employment prospects as well. So, 150,000 illegals contribute $400 million in taxes to the state. Now, I looked at that number when somebody put it in the chat room, and I said $2,666.60. Well, that's what they pay for groceries throughout the year in taxes. I mean, that number had seemed low, so I started doing some checking, and it took 2 minutes. Mark Christopher was kind enough to give us a roundabout number. He said the average citizen in Connecticut pays about $8,000 in taxes. Mark Christopher was wrong. He'll be surprised to find out that the average Connecticut citizen pays $9,883 in taxes. That is the tax burden on average for the state of Connecticut, not including the national burden, which brings that number up to $15,000 and $15,098. So let's compare, if you will. The American citizen pays $15,000 in their state and federal taxes, while the illegal pays $2,666.66 in taxes. All the while, and I want to give Ricky, I got to give Ricky a shout out over here. Ricky, you. Thank you, my good friend. Let me read to you what Ricky wrote. He says, if the $400 million is true, why does the state pay $1.3 million or $1.3 billion for illegals? I forgot. Is it million or billion? Well, Ricky, it's $1.3 billion. That it is. $1.3 billion. For a tax burden that they pay, which is only $400 million. The tax burden that you pay for to the tune of $1.3 billion. These folks aren't paying. Their taxes, they're not even paying for themselves. They have a tax burden of $2,600.66, while you were paying the average of $9,883, and we still got to give them another $1.3 billion? We're paying them 3 times the amount of money they contribute? That's what we're giving them? And this is going to be, talk about mass deportation being a financial burden on the state. Getting rid of them? I'm sorry. The math ain't mathing, as they say in the hood. It ain't mathing here. What are you talking about? According to those numbers alone, and they're available everywhere. Molly, they're available everywhere. If we're spending $1.3 billion on 150,000 illegals, it doesn't matter what they contribute. If they leave, we save $1.3 billion. Even with the loss, we're still, what does that number come to? What? Just under $1 billion in savings. Are you people serious? Really? They're really trying to sell this nonsense. Just anything. They'll write anything. 860-522-WTIC. Let's go to David. No, I can't. You know what? We'll go to David Branford real quick. Hello, Dave.
Well, Reese, how are you? This is a very mild topic. Won't take very long. This is my anti-racist rant.
Okay.
You've got Bob Duff making a stink about the books the library is trying to ban, Gender Queer and Flamer.
Yeah.
You know the kind of book.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even a Stacey Abrams kind of a book. And yet all the books I want to read by Tom Sowell and Rush Limbaugh and Walter E. Williams, they're not there. So I had to wait 4 weeks, a full month, to get a Walter Williams book called Liberty versus the Tyranny of Socialism, published in 2008. I highly recommend it. It's about 150 two-page essays on every subject under the sun from a Reese type of a point of view.
Okay.
Very nicely conservative. Every one of them would make an hour's segment on your show.
Beautiful.
One of the best books I've read. Incredibly, there were only a couple libraries in the state that had the book. I ended up getting it. The lending library was Yale's Sterling Library, which is not even open to the public. There's a brand new paperback that they have expensively bound up in hardcover. So they're treasuring this Walter Williams book, and you should too. He's published 10 books.
I know.
My library has none.
Let me ask you real quick, because I know you wait a long time, and I'm getting the impression, Dave, that you really love the not hardcover, but you actually like the physical book. You're not a fan of the Kindle sort of online book thing. Is that not your thing?
It's going to kill me to have to give the book back. Because it's not mine. I can't highlight the appropriate line.
Right.
Occasionally, I can get it over on
But
your
why
show
don't you?
or
Why
something,
don't you?
and,
Do you? Okay, so do you only borrow books? Is that the deal? Do you not buy them? You just
well,
like to borrow them?
I go through. I'm about a book a day guy. I
Really?
can afford to. I can't. Reese, I can't keep up with buying the newspapers every day. I really have to go to the library to get, the Wall Street Journal at $5 a day. I could get a subscription. But so this book, Walter E. Williams, and a lesson for you, Reese. He always calls his wife Mrs. Williams.
I love it.
Very respectful and conventional. What a wonderful man. It's a shame
He
died.
is. I watched so many interviews on him, and I remember the first time I ever saw him and I heard him speak, I immediately felt like I was talking to my granddad. I immediately did. I don't know why, but it did.
Try to get some audio cuts so you can share it with the
I
audience.
will. Thank
That's
you, sir.
special.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me on.
You got it, buddy.
Bye.
Let's go quickly to Kim in Cromwell. Hey, Kim.
All right, I got to make some points here. First, I remind the audience, never trust any media journalist, whether they're on TV, a small newspaper, a large newspaper edition, just because they say something. These people don't do journalism.
No,
they're
they
activists, and they probably have meetings to decide how they can manipulate information. Having worked for the government, I can tell you, certain information, particularly financial, is not open for the public eyes that you can just go find out how much somebody made or what they paid in taxes. Can you imagine this journalist trying to say, well, they decided to open up their computer and I went down identifying people by nationality and then added up all the dollar amounts. That is complete bull that they did that.
Right.
There. And they're just trying to persuade to people. If these people are illegal, they are working off the books because you would have to go through some kind of formal proving that you're allowed to work in the United States anytime you fill out applications and stuff.
Correct.
So, and if they're off the books, they wouldn't be paying money to the IRS.
Exactly.
It's theirs to keep. If you have legal immigrants here, I doubt very much that these people are in such high-paying jobs, engineers, doctors, architects, whatever, that they would be paying that. Again, this is all part of the game of the kumbaya and trying to break the country by ushering in so many people that it would overwhelm the system. The system would break, and then they're hoping that it would be some Democratic leader in charge that say, well, I've got to do an emergency order of some kind, and I'm going to have martial law, and we're going to change our entire economic system and this, that, and the other thing. That's basically it.
Exactly right, Kim. You're 100% right. Thank you, dear. I always appreciate you. Let's go to Jeff in Marlboro. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Reese. How you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good, sir. What's up?
Yeah, so I sort of agree with the last caller. Just wanted to kind of like touch on that a bit. 2 points is like, number one, you to pay taxes in the first place, you have to have a social security number or a taxpayer identification.
Fill out a
number.
W-2 for crying out loud.
Yeah, but I mean, if these people are illegal, the other thing is like, you're not going to volunteer and say, yeah, I'm illegal, but I'd like to pay my taxes.
Right.
And number two, when they estimate the amount of illegal immigrants in this state, the same thing. Who's going to jump up and say, oh, yes, I'm illegal, but I'm here. Here I am.
I don't.
How do they know?
This is the part that saying that, as so many people have made this argument, saying that they pay their taxes is, again, forgetting the point. And they said it was like, oh, they pay taxes like everyone else. My question to them is they never go any further than that. I'm still trying to figure out how, even if they're just paying sales taxes, let's just use that metric.
Yeah, like sales tax and national gas tax.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every average citizen, if you really think about it, right? Let's compare the two. This is what should make every person in Connecticut angry. Because we know that illegals, according to these numbers, right? If these numbers are correct, if we're to believe this outfit that wrote them, The illegals who don't have a W-2, who are not having their wages withheld, right, in paying taxes. That means the sales tax that every one of them are paying is to the tune of $2,666. We know, based upon just looking it up, we actually have a study of that, the average citizen of Connecticut pays state taxes to the tune of $9,883 taxes. And these are the numbers based upon 2022, 3 years ago. Now, consider this. Now, Jeff, let's throw on $2,666 to your tax burden because you pay sales tax too. So now your number skyrockets from 9,000 to far over 13,000. And then on top of that, you have another 4,000 in federal taxes that you pay. So now you're in excess of $20,000 of a tax burden that you pay, while the illegal only pays $2,666. How are you not outraged?
I could buy a nice Hyundai every single year for that.
Exactly. Your tax burden at this point is, 10, 20 times what they're paying, if you look at it. So I got to take a break, buddy. Thank you, man. All right, let's get another check of the weather and traffic with Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center. Not
real
bad.
Quick, what's the average American play?
Average American in Connecticut, 9,883,000. You said
grand.
8, so yeah, about 10 grand.
Okay, 10 grand per person.
And then
that's
another
for federal.
federal is another 5 grand. 15,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
That's a lot.
I know. Between me and my wife, the first $3,000 we make every month goes to federal, state, and local taxes.
There you go.
It's crazy.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy 100th birthday, WTIC. Happy birthday to us. Now you know why they don't ask me to sing.
Anyway, Nice doesn't have a bad voice. Anyway, don't forget to get on the lines today if you want to receive a dozen bagels a month for 6 months. Give us a call at 860-522-WTIC, 860-522-9842, so you can win a dozen bagels a month for 6 months, courtesy of Between Rounds, the Bagel, Bakery, and Sandwich Cafe. Also, remember to check out Between Rounds and get yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the rest of the month. Up until the last day, which is coming up very soon. I'm just looking at the calendar here. How many days do we have left? This is the 22nd. So I guess we're working on, 10 days? Less than that? Yeah, wow. A week from tomorrow is going to be the last day to pick up a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because $1 of the proceeds goes to Friendly Hands Food Bank. So you'll be helping them out. And, of course, you can always help out Friendly Hands Food Bank by giving them your non-perishable food, canned goods, stuff like that, and just contact Karen Thomas at the Friendly Hands Food Bank. They got a big, giant truck. I stood next to it. And, in fact, I think a friend of mine sold him that truck that I took a picture in front of during the election. Anyway, so we'll check that out. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls. All right, so give us a call at 860-522-WTIC, 860-522-9842. Back to the chat room here. Donald says that the unscrupulous employees, I just lost them. The unscrupulous employees who collect income tax and Social Security but never turn over the money to the government. Not true, Donald, unfortunately. If you don't have an employee sign a W-2 and you're paying them off the books, more than likely you are paying them in cash or you are paying them in a cashier's check. You can pay them in a check if you want to, but there is clearly no W-2 being filled out by the employee. So there's no income tax to withhold. If you are paying somebody, look, I'll give you a perfect example, and this happens all the time. You have somebody that you can pay the minimum wage. Let's say the minimum wage is $10. You have to have them sign a W-2, and that is an agreement, right? W-2, it's all on the up and up. It goes out to the government. You're employed. You are now a marked man in the government. Your withholding goes to the government out of every paycheck that you earn. If you don't do that, you can then tell the employee, hey, in order to work here, it's usually $10 an hour. You fill out a W-2. But if you don't want to do that, we'll pay you $7 up front. No need to tax your income. Person says yes, there is no withholding. So that's usually how it goes. What's up, everybody? You know who it is.
You know who it is.
You know who it is. It's Reese on the radio. Frederick Douglass of the 21st century.
It's WTIC News Talk 1080.
Now, we were talking yesterday, Roland, about at this portion of the show, we were talking to Lori, who called in and said that this portion of the show, we used to have this music that was played by the rapper J. Cole. And we looked it up afterwards to find out where the song was from. We found the name of the song. We found what the record label was. Do you want to hear the funny part about it? This shows you just how crazy all of this is. So we know that the record, the song that we're talking about in the intro of the song is a song called Face Off by Tom Morello at Sony Records. And then we looked up the song by J. Cole at the end of the show because Lori was so interested. She was like, I want to bring that song back. And we're like, fine. So we'll look it up and see if we can get both of them incorporated in the same package and see if we can get licensing or a release on both of them. So I looked up, and J. Cole is with Columbia Records. So my first thought of that was, okay, now we got to contact two different labels. Well, I start looking up Columbia Records, and I go to find their information to see if who we can talk to about licensing. And sure enough, it directed me to Sony Records.
Nice.
So it turns out that both of them are licensed by Sony. So now we can put a bid in for both records, which I'm doing because somebody I think Lori's in the chat room and asked what did we get so far. So now that we know that both records are with Sony, turns out Sony owns Columbia. Like, okay, Sony owns everything. We're just going to go through Sony and see if we can get both songs or get the use of both songs and see if we can. There may be another way out, by the way. There may be another way out that won't cost us a thing. But I have to talk to some really, really big wigs at Odyssey in order to do it. So let's just say I'm doing some feelers to find out how I can get this done. Anyway, with that, 860-522-WTIC. Like I said, if you want to be the last but not least caller of the day, you don't have to opine about anything. Just say, hey, I'm calling for the bagels. Give us a call at 860-522-9842, and we will make you the last but not least caller of the day right now to win a dozen bagels a month for 6 months, courtesy of Between Rounds, the Bagel Bakery and Sandwich Cafe. Now, let's get to a white Mike who calls in regularly now. How you doing, boss?
Oh, man, so you're talking about a subject with these illegal aliens that I actually have the solution to. I can solve this problem. It's not difficult at all.
Okay. Okay. Is it going to be right at that line of the Rubicon that I'm going to have to censor you?
I reckon you're going to have to find out if you censor me or not.
I don't trust you, my man. I always tell you protect the license. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So when you're dealing with a place that has a drug problem,
yes,
okay, the bleeding heart thing to do is to say, well, you know, these poor drug users are just victims and they can't help it, so we can't punish them. We'll punish the drug supplier.
Okay.
Which is fine. But you ultimately got to punish drug users because if there's a punishment for using drugs, people will do it. I look at businesses utilizing illegal alien labor like they're drug users.
Agreed.
Their drug is cheap labor. So we have to punish the people that are facilitating the jobs and the housing for these illegal savages coming across the border.
Correct.
So I think what we should do is start confiscating properties, finding people, and putting them in jail. And I mean everything from the slumlord who runs a sweatshop in New York City sewing garments to the yuppie white people in California who have an illegal Guatemalan maid. Let's start finding them $25,000 per offense and putting them in jail and taking their stuff.
You're 100.
How quick.
You're so right about that because I had conversations with people in Hartford, Connecticut. I talked to a husband and wife who told me about an industry that is at the southern border I had never heard of. And I know you're in Florida, so you had to have heard of this company before. Manpower. Are you familiar with that name at all?
Yeah, I've heard of Manpower.
Okay, so Right. So Manpower, for those of you who've ever used it or maybe had worked at a company that used it, Manpower's job was to get temp work for people who had a hard time finding a job or people who were just looking for part-time work. Some people worked there for so long, they ended up becoming permanent members of that staff. And Manpower did that. Well, they have what's called the Manpower version at the southern border. And that organization will go there and vet the individuals in, be it Guatemala, Honduras, whatever the case is, vet them, They will bring them into the country, get their paperwork legit. The only thing that the employer had to do was to facilitate their place to stay. So either have an apartment, maybe even a mobile home, or even a house. This particular family I spoke to had an entire home. They bought 2 homes, and they had about a dozen guys living in them. But this manpower organization, facilitated getting those people here, and they had to be on the up and up. The reason why they couldn't use them, Mike, do you want to know why they had to stop using the company? Because the employees, the employees there could not deal with not working on the weekends. And the guy was like, well, we close on the weekends. We can't work every day. These guys wanted to work every day of the week. And they just wanted to make more and more money because it didn't matter. But he was like, look, I got a family. I can't open every day. So they ended up selling the business and doing whatever. But they couldn't always keep guys because they did not want to just work 5 days a week. But they have this apparatus. You're 100% right. The people who don't utilize that service should be punished.
If you are renting to illegals, we should confiscate your property. If you transport them, you should lose your vehicle. We do that to guys who go out and pick up hookers. If you're in some locations and you use your vehicle to pick up a streetwalker, they will take your car because you used it in commission of a crime. So this is a crime.
It's a good point. Yeah, exactly. You're operating just as a cartel would at the southern border.
And real quick, I got on X and I saw that President Trump, in his insanity, has said he wants to give Americans a baby bonus, $5,000 for every new mom having a baby. Can he not put some caveats on that? Maybe where the right people are having kids?
Yes, I understand that there's got to be something that goes with that, but yeah, 100% right.
Yeah,
there should be.
Maybe you're how about you're married? How about,
that's
you
correct.
haven't had 4 other kids, you're not on the dole. How about that?
Yeah.
How about we only do that for people who can carry their own weight?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. He's not, listen, this guy, sometimes Donald Trump, when it comes to his head, he opens his mouth, but I get you. We can't have everybody just having kids willy-nilly because then forget about it. It's a tax burden nobody needs after the fact.
You know how many Louis Vuitton diaper bags are going to be in the ghetto of that thing?
You got to go. Goodbye. Love you. Sometimes he's the worst. He's just the worst. Craig's in the car. What's up, big guy?
Manpower sounds like a gay strip club. Just saying.
Well, that was the name of it. I'm sorry. I couldn't think of the other name of the. There was another company that had another name that I actually, when I lived in Buffalo, I used to work with them. I couldn't remember their name. So Manpower, I knew them. They were one of the most popular.
Yeah, it's really popular with the fellas.
Yes, thanks.
So, Reese, I want to get back to. I got to get myself a Southern accent so I can compete with White Mike. I want to get back to the topic you had before about race.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to make it quick so I'm not the last but not least. I'm going to give you 2 lists. I'm going to give you a list of people I dislike and people I do like.
Mm-hmm.
I dislike Whoopi Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
I dislike Colin Kaepernick. I dislike P. Diddy. I dislike Al Sharpton. I dislike, Jesse Smollett.
Sure.
Jesse Jackson. Give you a list of people I do like. I like Prince. I like Stephen A. Smith, Thomas Sowell, Jason Whitlock, Morgan Freeman, Will Smith, and I like Reese Hopkins. Do you know why I dislike or like those people?
I'm going to say that one half of those people are fantastic and stellar performers.
It is not.
Oh, okay.
It is because I believed in the I Have a Dream speech. I don't like or dislike any of those people because of the color of their skin.
Indeed.
I dislike or like them because of the content of their character.
Indeed. I agree. I know a lot of people know that and preach that. But again, I think Lori had it right. The narcissism of this racism, and that's what it is. It's nothing more than pure narcissism meshed with victimhood. There's a degree of that saying that everybody's paying attention to me.
I could make you that same, those same 2 lists with white people.
Exactly.
Because me and my friends, we don't really give a bleep about what color your skin is. That's the least important thing we look at when we decide who we want to hang out with or what music we want to listen to or what movies we want to watch. It's about who you are.
Yeah, I hear you. I totally get that. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Let me get to Tony in Southington. He hasn't called me in a while. Hello, Tony.
Hey, how's it going, buddy? I haven't talked to you in a while.
I know. What's going on, sir?
Yeah. All right. So, according to your monologue, I just want to remind your audience and yourself that life is about individual accountability, not what society owes somebody. I can't stand that Democratic and liberal rhetoric wants to say that, quote unquote, I don't even use that term, minority, because I have an awesome black friend that's male that I love to death, and I see him as a human being, not as something different. And the point I'm making is I can't stand that, like, you guys, like, need patheticism, pity, hopelessness, and helplessness from the Democratic and the liberal party, like protest. Where's the protests in Chicago? Where's Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all the Democrats and liberals there when blacks kill blacks by the thousands on a yearly basis?
Ain't no money in that.
I mean,
ain't no money in that.
The hypocrisy is disgusting, bro.
Tony, there ain't no money in that. Don't be talking about that. There ain't no money. There's nobody.
Yeah, you're right.
I can't listen.
You know what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, liberalism is a by design agenda. They run on emotions, not cause and corrective action or reality. Listen, we come into life alone. We go out alone.
Yeah.
We should treat everybody as individuals. If you treat me good, I'm treating you good.
Let me say this before I let you go. I know that most people are going out alone, but I'm taking all of you with me, okay? I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, man.
I got to go, buddy. I got to go. Let me go to Deborah, who is our last but not least caller of the day, calling out of East Haddam. Hello, Deborah.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm in the car, though, and I don't know how to turn off the radio.
That's okay. We won't keep you all that long, but I just want to
Am I going to have feedback?
No, you're sounding great. You are going to be our last but not least caller of the day, so you get a dozen bagels a month for 6 months, courtesy of Between Rounds.
Wow,
okay.
That's cool.
All right, did you want to opine real quick? You got about a minute.
I've never opined. I've never called in. I just got in the car after work.
Okay.
But I really enjoy your show.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I didn't know whether or not you were a listener or you just turned it on and you're just like, oh, okay, I'll call. I appreciate it.
No, I'm a listener every night when I'm driving home from Middletown to East Haddam.
Well, I appreciate that. And please drive home safe. We got Mark Christopher coming up with traffic, so make sure you tune into that so you at least know whether or not the roads are clear, okay?
Thank you.
You got it. Let's put you on hold. Roland will take care of you when we get to the end of the show. Career Girls was another temp agency, I'm assuming, for women only. Lori, I never heard of that one. That sounds like a local one. But I did the whole temp thing when I lived in Buffalo for a little while. And I'm not going to lie, I hated the temp jobs that they would give me. It was so bad. I'll tell you this is probably really weird. In Buffalo, of all places, men did not work inside buildings. Like, well, let's just say black men didn't work. They did a lot of laborious work. They work in sanitation, they worked in electrical, HVAC. You could not find an African-American. When I was working in a temp agency in 1998, I worked in a lot of offices doing clerical work. There was not a lot of black guys inside offices. And some of the girls in there, they would say, it was like, yeah, we never ever get guys in the office. They're always outside. And I guess in Buffalo, that's got to be rough. I would not want to work out in the cold in that snow. Just never. I always thought that was weird. Yeah, a lot of physical work in the Northeast. Anyway, that's our show. As I always say, radio is free, so we thank you for paying attention. Remember to keep JC in your hearts and in your mind. Sean Patrick, we love you and we miss you. Remember that panic is not planning, so plan your work and work your plan. Me, I'm Reese on the radio. I am not going bike riding today. We have feral hogs running through our neighborhood, and I'm not getting attacked by any of them. Jason Catarinas has got your weather, and Mark Christopher is in the BPS traffic center. Yeah, we got feral hogs. We got a herd
You got
of them.
hogs?
Yeah, they
running
were.
around?
We were riding on the trail, and we saw one, and it stopped in the bike trail, and then we ignored it. We kept riding. All of a sudden, 4, 5, 6 of them.
Wow.
Just going. They were big, too. They were at least, I know one of them was at least the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. They were huge.
Jeez Louise.
They were huge. And I was like,
they're not friendly?
no, feral hogs will attack you.
They will. Okay.
Yeah, they will attack you. So we were like,
They,
nope.
well, they want revenge for all the bacon we've eaten over the years. I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. Well, be careful out there, Reese.
got
if
it,
you're
man.
heading into Hartford, have a great night. South 91 coming into Hartford, delays 33.
All right, good sir.
All right,
Slow
buddy.
down by
We'll
exit
see you
28,
mañana.
Westbound 91's
Hump day coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
Windsor, Westbound 84.
Enjoy your night, man.
You too, man.
It's 47 Sigourney, 84 East.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I tried to keep it popping today. I'm going to go street side in my bike riding today. There's a lot of wooded area, like it looks like a jungle, and I'm not doing that today. I'm telling you, they were just there were a hell of a lot of them. Scared the hell out. I mean, I don't think I've ever been that scared in my life, but they were huge. All right, folks. We'll see you guys mañana. Be good to each other. No, yes, they did. They had tusks. Yes, they did, Michael A.